Hello boys and girls, this is Mr. Lawless, and today's video is called Rhythm Notation Basics. Now, we're not going to learn to read all of the different rhythms that you see on the page. It will take us years to study all of those rhythms. What we're going to talk about today are just some of the features of the notation and get an idea of just the basic way that rhythms are written down, so that as we start to study each element in depth, we kind of know what we're looking at. So we'll start off by looking at note heads. Each note has at least two parts on this page. It has a note head and a stem. Some of them have other parts as well. These three note heads that you see here, the first one is not colored in. It's an open note head. And the second two are colored in. Here's a closer view of some of the note heads. You can see the three ones that are circled in red are not colored in. Those notes are half notes. They're longer. And the two that are circled in green, those are colored in. Coloring them in makes them shorter. Those are quarter notes. Next, let's look at flags. When we want to make a note that's already colored in even shorter, we add a flag to its stem. The one at the bottom, you can see the stem on the note goes up from the note head and the flag comes back down. The one up here at the top, the note head is up high, so the stem is going down and then the flag is coming back up. And it actually touches the note head. I like the way those notes look. Here's a close-up of the two different kinds of flags. And again, a flag makes a colored in note even shorter. These are eighth notes. Now, if we take several notes in a row and we put flags on them, the music can start to look very confusing quickly. So instead of putting a bunch of flags in a row, instead we use beams. Beams are straight lines across the top of the note's stems that connect a group of notes together, and they mean the same thing as if we had flags on all of the notes. Here's a close-up view of these pairs of eighth notes with beams. We can also add a dot after a note. A dot makes a note a little bit longer. It actually makes it longer by exactly half of whatever the original note is. So we would say that these notes are dotted. Here's a close-up view of a couple of dotted quarter notes from this passage. And just the same way that we can use note heads and flags and beams and dots to show how long a sound should last, we also have characters in the music font that let us show silences of different lengths. Here's a close-up of these two silences. The one at the top is a half note rest, or a half rest, and the one at the bottom is a quarter rest. The official musical term is rest. I don't care for that word because it makes it seem like when we encounter a rest, we stop thinking and rest, when in fact we don't stop thinking. We continue to count and be actively involved in the music making. Sometimes getting the silences right is just as difficult as getting the sounds right. These are rests. Now, all of these sounds and silences, the notes and rests, happen over a structure where we have heartbeats, and the heartbeats happen in a recurring pattern. We show what the pattern of heartbeats is in a piece of music using the time signature. Here's the time signature at the very beginning of this piece. It's in 2/4 time is the way that we say that. And here's a closer view. You do not need to know what these numbers mean individually. Time signatures can get very complicated very quickly, but you should know that that's called the time signature, and it's okay for you to notice that the top number, the 2, tells us that all this music we're about to perform is in groups of 2 heartbeats. Different time signatures put the music in different groupings. We can have 4, or 3 or 2 or actually any other number. These are the most common. These are time signatures. A time signature divides the heartbeats into groups. Again, in this piece, we're in 2/4 time, so every 2 heartbeats is a group. We call these little groups of 2 heartbeats measures. You can see there's a measure, and it has 2 quarter notes in it. It's exactly 2 heartbeats. Here's a closer view. The lines on either end of that measure are called bar lines. And they're the way that we chunk the music up visually into the groupings that the time signature told us about. There's a bar line in this music every 2 heartbeats. Here's a close-up view of a bar line. At the end of a section, we can use a double bar line to show us something a little more important is happening. And at the end of the piece, we use a final bar line that's much thicker, and that shows us that the music has ended. So that's all we need to know today. Let's just review those rhythm notation basics that we just talked about. There are note heads. Some of them are colored in, and some of them are not. There are flags. There are beams. And there are dots. We also can show silences in the music with different shapes that we call rests. The music is divided into groups of heartbeats using a time signature. This is 2/4 time. The time signature breaks the music into measures. And we see the measures by looking at the bar lines. Sometimes we call these measure lines. It means the same thing. At the end of a section, we can have a double bar. And at the end of the piece, you'll see a final bar.